And joining us now is a very special guest, privileged to be joined by Narayan Murthy, the man who founded Infosys, another of India's post-liberalization iconic companies, another iconic industrialist philanthropist. Good to have you on the show, Mr. Narayan Murthy. It is a tragic moment, though, Ratan Tata's passing away. Your tribute, sir. What did Ratan Tata, according to you, represent?
I think he was a human being which had lots of compassion. You just now spoke about animals and all of that. He had concern for the poorer sections of the society. He had huge concern for his employees. He was very courteous, whether he was speaking to a young admirer or a top industrialist. He was very patriotic. And several things that he did, for example, his starting of the manufacturing of nano car was purely based on patriotic feeling that we Indians too can produce motor cars. And so I would say that he was a great human being, very humble, very easy to hold conversation. I had taken my daughter in 1999 to meet him because she had taken a course on leadership in her undergraduate year. And Sudha and we took her to meet Ratan. And he had given her just 1 hour, but he spent 3 hours. He answered every question. He talked about what leadership is all about, why you have to take tough decisions, which he had demonstrated in plenty when he took over from JRD, and why there has to be compassion for the poorer sections of the society. You know, why you have to have high aspirations, why you have to compare yourself with the best in the world. So it was a very good lesson on leadership for Akshata, who was, at that time, would just reach 20 or 19 or something like that. It was a wonderful thing, very, very
Is that
illuminating, not just for Akshata, but even for Sudha and me. Of course, Sudha is out and out a Tata person, and I have always respected GRD. You know, we have named the most technologically advanced management council room now after Jamshedji Tata. And I invited Ratan to open the Jamshedji Tata Hall. And he called me and said, look, your TCS is your competitor. How is it that you are inviting me? I said, no, Jamshedji had transcended companies. He was a patriotic Indian. Therefore, for us, we don't think of Jamshedji as, belonging to a group that was competing with us. And he came. Of course, by nature, he was somewhat shy. He would not want to give long speeches. He gave a short speech, and he was also surprised that we had invited him to inaugurate that because, once again, the logic was that TCS was our biggest competitor. They were number one, we were number two. And I think at that point in time, we were, if you remove the General Electric business, we were probably the same or slightly higher than TCS. So he was a little bit surprised, and he came. He spent a lot of time with with Infosys, and every moment of his visit was a a show, I wouldn't use the word show, a demonstration of his humility, of his patriotism, and of his kindness.
Would I be right in saying, and you briefly touched upon it, the fact that he took the Tata Group global, you mentioned TCS there, the
Yeah.
post-91 generation, yourself, Ratan Tata, the audacity of ambition to go big, is that what defined him? Or the fact that while having this audacity of ambition, this heart of steel, he also had a heart of gold, a heart of velvet, if you want to call it. So, velvet in steel.
Yeah. Well, I think, even before Ratan, Tatas have always been known for their their having a heart of gold. Let's remember that any visit to Jamshedpur will demonstrate how large the heart of Tatas is. If you see the way Jamshedpur was developed, the way details were checked to make sure that everybody was comfortable in that town, I think that itself shows, that Tatas have always had a heart of gold. And the beauty of it is that Ratan came in, and Ratan, in fact, I would say, added value to what was already an extraordinary initiative. So, and on the issue of the global thing, there are divided opinions. After all, he was as much of a human being as you and me. So, we do certain things extremely well, certain things not so well. So there are divided opinions about the foray of the Tata companies into the export market, whether it was British Steel or whether Jaguar, etc. But I think the beauty of that is, for it is now coming into to full flowering, because Jaguar is becoming very popular in India. It is becoming popular in the Far East. So the market is now taking off. And therefore, I would say that he was a visionary. He thought very far into the future. And I am positive that every one of his initiatives abroad will be applauded and emulated as we move forward.
There's a word which has been mentioned, Mr. Murthy, right through the day today, compassionate capitalism. It's a word
Yeah.
that's also been associated with you. Define it. What is it for particularly young entrepreneurs that a Ratan Tata is a role model for compassionate capitalism?
I coined that term in 1975 after coming back from France, where I watched the capitalist countries of Western Europe and the socialist and communist countries of Eastern Europe. And to me, compassionate capitalism is capitalism in mind and liberalism in heart, socialism at heart. I think Ratan demonstrated it extremely well. Somebody else just now spoke about, or you yourself spoke about how he made sure that all the employees, their jobs were protected even after after 26/11. That to me is one aspect of compassionate capitalism. Second, of course, he made sure that whenever he went to any of these factories, he had conversation with the high and mighty on one side and the low and in some way not so fortunate on the other hand. Third, I would say that his philosophy was that the only way that our country can make economic progress is if every strand of the society makes economic progress. And I'm very happy that I too subscribe to the same thing. Though I must say that I articulated pretty early in my career in the middle 70s, and Ratan's views came to be known later in the 90s. I mean, naturally, given the circumstances that he was put in, obviously I can understand why he did. But at heart, I think it was very, very clear.
Right.
I was also very, happy to have had several interactions with him. For example, I once invited him to inaugurate the Akshay Patra kitchen, which was funded by my wife Sudha. That was the first public function he was accepting after he retired from Tata Sons. He came to Hubli. He stayed there for 2.5 days, and he participated in every function. He interacted with youngsters, with the mature people, with the rich and the not so rich, with the bureaucrats, with the ministers, everybody. And my co-brother, Dr. Deshpande, was also there. And I believe then he did support Akshay Patra after that. So that was a lesson for me in humility, a lesson in compassionate capitalism, a lesson in how the mighty can indeed have a part of their heart reserved for the not so fortunate ones.
Let me.
I mean, I have, I invited him in, this, probably about 12, 13 years ago, to come to Delhi and give a talk. I was the chairman of the Asia Business Council, where the CEOs of some of the largest companies in Asia, US, and Europe had come in. I had arranged meeting for them with the Prime Minister, and I wanted Ratan to host a dinner and give a speech. He came all the way from Bombay. He stayed for about half an hour, 45 minutes, and he hosted an excellent dinner, but he was very reticent to speak. He said, Murthy, please don't force me to speak. And finally, while he was absolutely courteous, ultra courteous, and he took care of all the guests with so much of affection, admiration, and respect, he didn't speak. So he was somewhat reticent to overcome his shyness. But he did every part of the act that was expected of him.
So if there is one leadership, Mr. Murthy, if in conclusion, if there is one leadership lesson that you think Ratan Tata gave you, or perhaps what is that one leadership lesson that you think Ratan Tata's life represents?
Based on personal interactions, I would say that he transcended financial status, official power, intelligence, and other qualities, in interacting in the same way with everybody that wanted to interact with him. That, I think, is a rare quality. I have met hundreds of CEOs all over the world, I would say, very, very large CEOs. But he did demonstrate every time, not just once, that he transcended these artificial barriers that we create amongst ourselves to belong to certain clubs or certain groups. That, I think, was his strength. And that's what I would say, that's what I learned from him. That's what we all owe it to him.
You know, Narayan Murthy, you paid a very fulsome tribute, and you, of course, have a personal angle. Your wife, Sudha Murthy, started her career at Telco. So she's a Tata's woman.
Oh, very much, very much.
And so I guess you've got various reasons to remember the Tatas very fondly. And like him, you too are an iconic figure for an entire generation.
Yeah. You know, Rajdeep, I
Yes.
must mention another incident where JRD was involved. You know, at that time, I used to be the general manager at Patni Computer Systems Limited, and Sudha was at Nanavati Mahalai, which was just opposite Tata, Bombay House. And every day I would pick her up in a taxi, and then we would go to our house in Bandra West. One day I got delayed a little bit. It was dark. It was December. And as I parked the taxi, as the taxi was parked, I saw a tall woman, I saw a tall man standing with Sudha. And then I quickly recognized it was JRD. And, you know, I believe he was coming out of the office and he saw Sudha standing there. And he said, why are you standing here, Mrs. Kulkarni, or whatever he said. He used to call her Kulkarni. And she said, oh, I'm waiting for my husband, etc., etc. And then when the taxi was stopped, I got out. He said, young man, don't make your wife wait here in the darkness anytime in the future. He spent about 10 minutes waiting for the taxi with Sudha. That is the culture of Tatas. That is the greatness of Tatas. That is what human beings mean to them. You know, just like Ratan. I mean, Jamshedji, Ratan, JRD, Jamshedji, Ratan, they all belong to a certain high culture. And that's something that has stayed with Sudha and me for, ever since that happened.
You know, that is wonderful story that you've told us. The culture of Tatas, the culture of compassion, the culture of reaching out to employees, that warmth and humanism. Narayan Murthy, thank you so much for joining me here today to pay tribute to Ratan Tata, an iconic figure in the world of industry and philanthropy, joining us here. Thank you very much. Let's go back.